this is worth being angry about.
Oh, they love you. They love it. It was like he's on fire. So that you're perfectly fine. Okay. So I am very skeptical of the peace process that Donald Trump is engaged in. I don't believe he's a peace president at all, by the way.
Which one now? So many peace states going up to Hamas?
Well, this one. So Donald Trump, who is supposedly, ostensibly, in peace negotiations with Iran, yesterday went out as he, prostrated himself for money.
Transactional. Remember I said that.
Yeah, completely transactional. Comes out.
I want to make a deal with Iran.
Now, keep in mind,
I want to make a deal with Iran. I want to do something if it's possible. But for that to happen, it must stop sponsoring terror, halt its bloody proxy wars, and permanently and verifiably cease its pursuit of nuclear weapons. They cannot have a nuclear weapon.
So we're clear. Even by U.S. standards, Iran is not trying to get a nuclear weapon, meaning our own intelligence says.
And we've been saying that.
They're not trying to do it. All right. This is on top of him saying, cease working with terrorists, as he shakes the hand of a literal head-chopping jihadist, Jelani, that was out there murdering Americans in Syria and one of leaders of ISIS. I just want to make that point. All right. So how on earth could Donald Trump be saying this? And doesn't this sound a lot like weapons of mass destruction in Iraq? Meaning, isn't this taking the same tenor? You have George Bush, who has Project for a New American Century. He decides with his other neocons, we are going to come up with a pretext to invade Iraq. Oh, I know, weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. We're going to pretend like there's a peace process. We're going to send Scott Ritter over there not to stop a war, but to start a war. There's that. And then, the peace process blew up. Oh my God, now we have a pretext by which we can attack Iraq. Okay, Donald Trump says Iran is trying to get weapons of mass destruction. Okay, this sounds very familiar. We have a peace process. That also sounds very familiar. Donald Trump takes maximalist demands in regards to something that he knows that they're not going to do because they're a sovereign nation and no sovereign nation. Hey, you shouldn't even be looking at Iran. Full stop, right? You're effectively threatening unilateral military action against a country that is not threatening you. So there's that. Two, you are effectively saying they're trying to get weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, just like you did. In Iran, just like you did in Iraq. You come up with a peace process that is designed to fail because you're asking them for things that you know they're never going to give you. When it fails, it blows up. You've already said, well, we're going to attack you if you don't accept the deal that we're putting on the table. You're also trying to say that whatever the Ansar Allah does is a one-to-one with Iran, that Iran is effectively pushing them to do it. And so you've created a context by which you can now militarily strike Iran. Now, I think that the U.S. is going to bite off more than it can chew if it does that. And if we can't deal with the Houthis, where he effectively, his pain threshold is so low that he pulls out from the Houthis, oh my God, you're running into with Iran. But it sounds like he's creating a very similar context to attack Iran using the same methodology and approach that was used to attack Iraq. What am I missing? Or am I wrong?
Your audience is good to see me, but you saw me when you were talking, jumping up and down and said, man, you just said something so key. I had something in my book. I don't know why I let the editor take it out. I'm a rookie writer or whatever. I just wanted to get this book out, a plain, simple reading. I explained it so that people not familiar with foreign policy and government and military. I explained it so easily, so it's easily read, and it's a short read. And but listen, I had this in my book, and I let the editor take it out. I wish I would not have let them do that. What you just said, the reason I'm on this doggone crusade as well is to keep us from going to war with Iran. Okay? Now, what you said earlier about Iraq, WMD. Now, as I go around, when I'm talking to audiences, as I'm going to share with you, I said, people, remember this. Fool us once, shame on them, Bush administration, WMD, Iraq. Fool us again, shame on us, Iran and nuclear weapons. Iran does not want a nuclear weapon. As you mentioned earlier, that our intelligence community has said they're not making a nuclear weapon. We've been saying that all along. You know where that comes from? Direct from the mouth of Bibi Netanyahu. He's been saying that for decades. Your audience can go and Google him before our Congress 20 years ago, saying that they have a nuclear weapon. They're 4 days away. They're 5 days away. Well, I would think by 20 years now, they would have had that weapon by now if they truly wanted it. Critical thinking. I always tell our audience to think about that. If they were 20 years ago, 4 days away, 10 days away, they would have had that nuclear weapon by now. Think about that. North Korea have theirs, right? North Korea. Okay, now, going back to something else you said about this treaty. Yeah, Iran having a nuclear weapon will be an excuse to go to war, even though our intelligence community is saying they're not trying to make a nuclear weapon. That will be the rationale. But the main rationale will be, this is why Trump broke the nuclear deal. First, you got to understand something I said earlier about administrators and people coming in the agenda. Trump knew nothing about foreign policy coming in and all this. Bush didn't know anything about it. You have advisors like the neocons that come in with agendas that are advising them. Now, the reason Trump broke the nuclear treaty that we had, if I remember right, the JCPOA, the reason he broke that was because of the fact, which Iran will not do. I think Iran would try to work a deal, and I do think Trump would try to work a deal because he's transactional. He wants some more of that oil. He wants whatever. He wants to trade with them. You know, he wants them to buy our goods. So I think, you know, he's a businessman, you know. But here's the deal. The neocons, the movement, they don't want Iran to have ballistic missiles. They have ballistic missiles that can destroy Israel. That's why they don't need a nuclear weapon. So part of the deal during the Obama administration was they tried, some of the neocons, hardliners tried to say, okay, you got to get rid of those ballistic missiles. Why? Because they can carry nuclear weapons, those ballistic missiles. And not only that, they are powerful and accurate. And listen, let me just give you an example. When I say critical thinking, when we, when under the first Trump administration, when we took out Iran's one of their top leaders, Iran responded in Iraq with ballistic missiles, and they left cradles, and they understand how powerful they are. When Israel attacked Iran and they said they were going to respond, they responded with ballistic missiles. They did more damage than what was exposed, and that's a fact too. But you don't want to expose that because they know, your so-called enemy know how much it was exposed. So now, what's going to stop a deal, if it was going to be made, was that they're going to insist that Iran get rid of their ballistic missiles. And Iran is not going to do that. And I don't blame them because of the fact they're giving away their sovereignty then, because that is their final line of defense, are those ballistic missiles, which they have plenty of, and they're very powerful, and they're very accurate. Now, do I think, once again, I can give you facts, assumptions, opinions. My opinion, my assumption, do I think Trump really wants peace? Yes. You know why? Because of his ego. He wants to be the one to say, I was the one who made peace in the Middle East. That's why he keeps pushing the Abraham Accords. That's why he keeps pushing that. The last piece of that, if I'm almost there with Saudi. We already got Iraq. If I can get Iran, I will go down as history as being the man, the president that finally made peace in the Middle East. So my opinion, yes, if there can be a peace, but there's going to be such a hard push. Let me just say this. The reason they got rid of his national security advisor was because of the fact he's one of those hardliners that is bought and paid for by the Israeli lobby. Because he was back. He was back doing.
Mike was a spy.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. There you go. Exactly. And so hardliners like him, they don't want the peace. But yeah, do I think Trump really? Yeah, because it'll make him look good. I was the man that all these many years and decades, I was the one that brought peace to the Middle East.
But then how does that speech get made? Full of lies, by the way. In fact, Trump created an alternate reality in Saudi Arabia. In fact, every accusation was a confession. Hamas and rape. Okay, well, I can show you videos.
Remember I
of
said
Israel raping.
he says the quiet part out loud. That's
yeah,
why
he says it out loud. I guess my point is, if he wants peace, then how is he talking about a ballistic missiles programs that he knows that they're not going to give up? How is he saying that they're trying to create nuclear weapons that he knows that they're not trying to make? How is he saying that? Meaning he is postulating a false reality. And I have to wonder, okay, if you're postulating this false reality, why? I'll give you another example. When Trump was talking about Russia, for example, he said, I want peace in Ukraine. He wasn't constructing a false reality. If you notice, he started coming around to reality. Well, this is because of NATO expansion. Okay, Crimea is Russian. Yeah, I mean, this was always a red line. Okay, well, that's a reality that people weren't getting for 3 years because the Biden administration was creating a false reality in order to create a justification for an attack. Trump is doing the exact same thing dealing with Iran. So if indeed he is looking for some kind of deal, why is he putting out stuff that is so beyond the pale of negotiation? Iran is, so we can support terrorists, but Iran, quote unquote, can't. Oh, so we can have nukes. Israel can have
but
nukes,
Iran can't?
but Iran can't. Like,
Yeah.
I can go down this list, right? So Iran is stealing its people's money for terrorist activities, but Israel has invaded Lebanon, Syria. They're slaughtering people as we speak. As Trump, every word that was, every syllable that was coming out of Trump's mouth was an Israeli woman and child that was being murdered by the Israeli government. So if he's creating this false reality for Iran, how is that indicative of a person who's trying to get peace in Iran? It sounds like he's creating a context for war, every bit as much as George Bush with the weapons of mass destruction in Iraq.
Let me just say this. You remember I said earlier, there's so much pressure in Washington, D.C. In my book, I talk about, and I quote President Obama at the time. I became very upset at President Obama because he was being pushed, and he quotes that, and I got his quote in my book of all the pressure he was under. Listen to me just tell you. Remember I said it crosses in both administrations, Republicans and Democrats? You don't know the pressure that Obama was getting.
Real quick, though, pressure from who? I know you say lobbyists, but what is
those
leverage? What
leverage? Listen, let me say this. The only reason presidents are in office, the only reason members of Congress are in office, because people fund their campaigns.
Right.
They don't fund their campaigns for nothing. They want something out of it. That's why when you hear all this push about getting campaign finance reform and getting money out of politics, you have, when we talk about smacking the butt, we have so much money and pressure on these members of Congress that, hey, we won't support you the next time. There are people that want to stay in office that long. And so, but let me just go back to this. And so the pressure. So Obama was pressured into by these forces to go in and attack Assad. Okay? And he fought. You read that in my book. He fought against it, but it was hard. He talks about that because of the fact of money. You know, if you don't support these folks, we're going to vote you out. So you got to make a decision. Well, do I want to stay in the office and be somebody, you know, that everybody love and I'm in the office or whatever? Or do I, or do I succumb to the pressure to stay in office, or do I do what's right? Do I do what's right? Now, going back to Trump. Now, I got to be careful here what I'm about to say because I'm not a psychiatrist. But you know how we said Biden lost all faculties at the end there. He couldn't be president again, right? You're hearing that about Trump right now, right? So you have to understand when I say this pressure, opinion, assumption, because I do think he wants peace based on what I just said. But you got people, you got to be quick on your feet. When you get older, your mind is not as sharp. You got people that's pushing talking points to him. This is what you have to say. This is what you have to come across. This dude is getting mixed up. In his heart, I do think he wants peace because it's transactional, gets up out of it. But at the same time, you have what these forces I'm talking about, these lobbyists, whether it be the military, industrial. Let me tell you something. Listen, you got to understand this. War is a racket. We give Ukraine all these weapons. All you have to do is listen to Lindsey Graham. We give Israel all these weapons. Mm-hmm. They have to be replaced. Okay, when we talk, it's called foreign military sales. We give these countries all this money, but to buy weapons, but they have to buy the weapons from us.
Right.
From us. A Ponzi scheme. We're going to give it to y'all, but you give it back to us, and then our oligarchs get rich. Okay? We want war, not per se, but our government and these forces that are funding our members of Congress and these presidential administrations. And so when you say, I hear Trump talking about the ballistic missiles, I hear him talking about this and that, he's being pushed to say that with talking points, and then he gives, oh, I guess I'm supposed to say this. Oh, I guess I'm supposed to say that. Though he wants to be, then he may get back in his office, and guess what happens this? Just follow this. I've been studying this. Wait a minute. Why did I say that? He's going to put out a tweet the next day over that surprises all the staff. Oh, why did he say that? Why did he do that? Because he gets back to his own world by himself, but nobody's pushing all these talking points to him. Remember, he used to say in his first term, he didn't read Intel. I don't know if you remember that, but he said he didn't read his Intel books and all that. He didn't read this and that. You know, he went out on the fly. Okay, they're putting talking points. You know, the so-called experts, you know, that, hey, this is how we run our foreign policy. He has a different idea, so he follows those talking points. Then you talk about reality. Then he comes back to his own world, gets in his bedroom at 1 o'clock in the morning. Then he puts out a tweet, hey, I'm going to make peace with Iran. Oh, by the way, you know what I'm going to do? I may call for a Palestine state. You know, oh, no, you can't say that. You can't do that. So that's how it works. We operate in confusion. And I mean, you never know what's going to happen. We don't know the press, what's going to come out of his mouth. Once again,
inconsistent.
He
has been consistent on this. He hasn't deviated from this. On this topic, he's been very consistent. Aragachi, the foreign minister for Iran, did point out, he was like, the U.S. doesn't know what he wants. If you remember, but in the very beginning, Witkoff, when he was initially negotiating, they sounded like they were on the same page. We're going to lower the amount of nuclear enrichment. We're okay with that. No issue. Witkoff gets attacked immediately after he does that, in which case his demands maximize. You get Rubio giving statements out, effectively saying we need a Libyan option for Iran, that we need to get rid of all of they can't have nuclear enrichment in Iran. Okay, again, they're being consistent when they're putting out these messages over and over. Even Trump himself, when he's putting out his tweets saying that everything that the Houthis does is effectively Iran doing it. Okay.
Oh, well said. Again, you know, we always say Iranian-backed Houthis.
Exactly.
That's a message. Iranian-backed, that's a message. But let me just say this again. Listen, all this is politics. All this is ruthless oligarchs. You mentioned Rubio. Listen, in the book, man, I hate to keep promoting this book. It's all going to be there. In this book, I talk about these neocons, these Israeli lobbyists. They surround themselves, and part of their agenda is, and they did it with Bush. They even did it for Obama, because you have Democratic neocons too. Victoria Nuland, I don't know if you ever heard that name before, who helped the coup to take out the president-elect in Ukraine in 2014. Now, with that said, though, Rubio is bought and paid for. They were funding all his campaigns. He wants to be president. And so you ever heard, oh man, I'm trying to think of the Congressman's name, that he said all these members of Congress have handlers.
Thomas Massey. Yep.
Have handlers. That's a fact. Okay. Rubio, even as the State Department, how do you think he got that job? The push by those handlers. He still have handlers from his country. He has to put out those messages. That's why it's so confusing. So Trump has his way. And like I said, just follow this in the future. He may come out and tweet something. All of a sudden you hear the media say, wow, where did that come from? Oh, that caught the administration, meaning the staff, by surprise too. You follow me? It's confusing. You know, this is probably, as I told folks, the first time we were on edge about Trump. I said every one of us lost 10 years of our life expectancy under the first administration. Now, it's only been not 4 months yet, and I've already lost another 10 years. Because what you just said, I want peace, but he has to be the strong man too. He certain peace, he's like, you know, well, they can't have a nuclear weapon. Well, we just said they don't want to. Your own President Trump, your own intel community told you they're not trying. But yet, what are his talking points? As you just said it, they can't have a nuclear weapon. Oh, but I want peace, though. Like, oh, we can have, okay, you get for, which they want to do, for civilian purposes, okay, you can have a certain program. But wait, Wycliffe, wait a minute. Somebody else all of a sudden pressured him. You know, I can't remember, but it was like a few months back, they had a negotiator for them, for the government, that said, Israel don't tell us what to do. We do it. He was gone the next day.
Yes, he was. He was one that was negotiating with Hamas. Yeah.
He was gone the next day.
And
Israel don't tell us those forces I'm telling you about.
Because that message that Trump put out saying, well, they can have civilian usage, that is not inconsistent with what Rubio was saying. What they meant was, and the propaganda was, well, they could have civilian usage providing they are not enriching.
Enriching, yes.
Under Trump's thing is, or under Rubio's thing is, the Libyan model, as they call it, you have to get your nuclear supplies from somebody else, which again breaches Iran's red line of no, we are a sovereign country and we will enrich and we would agree upon the limits of enrichment.
Exactly. And you're right.
Pointing out that tweet that Trump is putting out is not inconsistent with what Rubio was saying in this kind of politicized way of trying to get across this neocon policy.
Yeah.
Again, his tweets are consistent with what he's been saying, is my point.
And let me just say this. When you said that Iran's not going to follow that, you're right. All you have to do is look at what happened in Libya. You know, when they gave up, I think it was 2003 or 2004, when they gave up their nuclear program, there's no longer a Gaddafi. Yep. Now it's what he was doing for that country was great. Now it's a third world with no functioning government now. So you're right. Hey, look, I don't know what to take. Remember, I can give you a substantive fact. I don't know what's going on in Trump's mind. This is the most confusing administration ever because you never know what's going to happen. So, you know, this is one of the things I tell you, Uncle. You know, as I tell folks, I can give you facts of things I know.
Fair enough.
I can give you an assumption. I can give you an opinion, Uncle.
That is perfectly fair. I ask because there's a white hat and a black hat version of this story. In one sense, what you see is what you get. That no, Trump wants peace. You know, he's there's some level of split with Netanyahu, even though he's still be close to Israel. He's working behind the scenes with Hamas. He's calling off their dogs for Yemen. Like, meaning there's that version, but the other version is all of this stuff is politics. And in the same way they got rid of Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, Sudan is now a basket case. Iran, last man standing. And you have an administration full of neocons that is letting Netanyahu does whatever he wants. And one of the things that he wants is go after Iran. And in the same way that George Bush was running the policy, but what is something to New American Century.
Project for New American Century.
There's also Pathway to Persia, which explains pretend to have negotiations, blow up the negotiations, create a justification to attack Iran or allow Israel to attack Iran. And so when I look at it from a historical context and I see Trump doing something similar, I have questions. Now, I haven't taken a side. I'm just saying I've been somewhat cynical on it, even though I leave the branch open for the audience to make their choice about which one it is.
Let me just say this, and you're exactly right. Trump may want peace, which I said that's my opinion and my assumption, but there are people that don't want peace that are backing Bibi Netanyahu. Some of it ideology and some of it is funding. Now, you mentioned something about the PNAC, as I mentioned before. You know, that is the home of all these folks, the PNAC and these neocons. You ever heard of the American Enterprise Institute?
Yes.
AEI, you know, a conservative think tank, okay? All of Bush's administration, his main, would being the vice president of at the time, all came from I think it was 16. That's in the book as well. 16 of his cabinet members and administrators came from the American Enterprise Institute. Yeah, that's in the book. Take a look at that.
Wow.
They all came from there. And like I said, listen, I told somebody yesterday during an interview, my job is to help educate the American public and even the world. And I appreciate you giving me that opportunity. Now it's up to you all to use your critical thinking to say, wait a minute, this is not right. Because of the fact, if we can be kept unknowingly, there's so much that's happening on our eyes. People like Larry Wilkerson and myself and others that have come out, as part of the Eisenhower Media Network, we have former national security so-called experts from the CIA, the FBI. One of our members, Colleen Raleigh, she was one of the FBI folks that was, her? Yeah. She was telling them, she was telling them, hey, something's not right. You got these folks that are learning how to take off, but not learning how to land. She was an FBI whistleblower, they say, hey, warning. Those warnings were discounted, So we have then we became, hey, what is going on here? So we must do our part in sharing what we know, facts that I can give you. And then if you so ask me something I don't know, I may have to say even uncle, I can give you an opinion or an assumption as well. But my job is to share with you my knowledge, to educate as many folks as I can. Then it's up to you to use the critical thinking and then to think about our future folks, when we go to vote or whatever the case may be, or put pressure on our members of Congress to say, well, wait a minute, what about this? You don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
So my job is to help you know.
You've been fantastic. I appreciate it.
I don't know about that, and I apologize if I got, all emotional and so.
You have been fantastic. As a flat fact, you've been awesome, and I thank you for this.
Well,
Dennis Fritz, retired Commander Chief Master Sergeant of the United States Air Force. He is currently director of the Eisenhower Media Network with the mission to promote peace and diplomacy over the world. Over war. While on active duty, he served as principal senior advisor to 4-star commanders at Pacific Air Force and Air Force Space Command. He also held the additional duty as senior enlisted advisor to the commander of North American Aerospace Defense Command. That's NORAD, just in case people wanted to know the acronym. He's author of the book, Deadly Betrayal, The Truth About Why the United States Invaded Iraq. You've been awesome. I really hope you come back. Thank you for this.
Well, I look forward to coming back again. Thank you for having me.
You have a good one. Be safe. All right. He was a great